Hi guys, so today I'm interviewing Naveen Andrews, who's an actor, and this is part of my primary research. And I'm going to be asking him a few questions. Hi Naveen, thank you for letting me do this on Christmas Day.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
So essentially, I see you as a performer and not as an actor. I don't know if there's a difference between both, but I want to look at this from a sense of performance, and because you're creating an experience out of your own body for somebody else. And I'm interested to understand, when you create that experience, do you experience it first and then re-experience it for the audience? What is your process, and how do you do this transfer of?
Wow, that's quite a complex sort of question because it involves so many different ideas or thoughts or schools of thought, I should say. I mean, like the very first thing you said, I see you as a performer, not an actor. That's in the West, I suppose, I should say, before I say anything else. There's a big difference between what we consider to be performing, which is where you're using yourself, usually. I remember Sean Penn saying that Nicolas Cage was, at least to him, it was his opinion, I stress, that Nick Cage was a performer and not an actor, because Nick Cage is, I guess, known for highly sort of calibrated, what he refers to as expressionism, rather than what we know as like neorealism, I suppose, or naturalism, I should say. Naturalism. So I would say I see myself, if I can see myself as anything, as an actor, because the way we were trained at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama was you should get away from yourself in order to inhabit a role. And we did this with various forms. You know, we started with like the mystery plays, which were like the passion plays, religious plays that were medieval plays in England, you know, in the 13th and 14th centuries. And then we moved on to restoration comedy, like from the 18th century, late 17th century, and then on to Shakespeare, Brecht.
Yeah.
And then getting it a little bit closer to the 20th century with Ibsen, yeah? So we were always trained to think as actors, which is just get rid of the self.
You say a performer has a lot more of himself?
Yeah. From that school of thought, yes.
So you also see that huge difference in the way an experience is created between a performer and an actor?
Oh yes, because I mean, to me, a performer is almost like I guess today it's like like modern comics, yeah, because it's coming straight from them. Whereas one of the great things about acting for me is you're not going to believe it, but I see myself as quite shy in life, and what acting does is gives you a role to hide behind.
So you were wearing a sort of a mask of
Absolutely.
some sort.
We also did mask work with Greek drama, you know, where you see the power of like neutralizing, you're neutral, yeah. So that, which is when you first do the Greek mask work, it's quite shocking because you feel like naked because you're like, oh God, you know, all my tricks and the things that you were used to doing maybe as an actor, or as you thought was acting, is actually performing.
Yeah.
So you make yourself like a blank canvas. Yeah.
So I still find that line very blur between a performer and an actor, even as you were telling me this, because you say when you wear a mask you feel like a performer, but when you don't have that you feel like an actor. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, for instance, like that in the West and here in India, actors, they're personality actors, and sometimes you can flip between the two. Like say someone like Jack Nicholson. There was a time in his career, and then, you know, much later on when he did About Schmidt, where he was an actor, in my view. And then somewhere around The Shining, the Kubrick film, it became more performance, because because you felt that he was giving a performance for the camera and using himself, you know, rather than adhering to a character, you know, quite strictly. Whereas if you see Five Easy Pieces from 1970, it's a character, you know.
So, do you place one above the other, or are they both like in your role? I mean, when you talk about acting and performance, are they equal in their approaches, or one is above the other? How do you?
I think that's a matter. That's for the audience, you know, because audiences react to personalities. It happens, you know. It's always happened, you know. When people go and see a so-called film star, whether it's Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, they want to see that person, right?
Yeah.
And that can also become a trap for the artist.
Yeah. So when you said you create an experience for the audience, like you want the audience to feel that person, you're basically creating an experience for them, an experience that they can relate to, or they can. Is that what you're trying to say? Like when you create, you're performing, you're acting for an audience has to accept you. There's an experience that the audience is taking away from watching you or another actor in place.
Well, there's a familiarity with, it doesn't matter what the role you're doing, it's the same personality that's coming through. I mean, like, you could say Cary Grant, for instance, is the best example of that. Or, and I can't say Jimmy Stewart because he was a little bit different, but, you know, you see... You see an elevated personality. You know, it's almost larger than life in a way, and it's like a cinematic presence, at least on the screen, that's may not have much to do with the character.
Yeah, so I'm interested in that idea of transfer. Now you want to portray a role, and you want your audience also to understand and feel and emote that role in some form.
Right, and it may not be something that invites the audience in. I did a role in a piece called The Buddha of Suburbia, which is like almost 20 years ago now, that was actually based on the life of a writer called Hanif Qureshi. And now I personally felt that the character in the book was very passive. I mean, I didn't find him attractive. Like if I was watching this character on screen, it's like, oh God, I mean, why is he a receptacle for other people's bodily fluids, you know, without any kind of will or strength of his own? And the temptation is to try and play against that and make yourself likable, but that's not the way. At least in my opinion, that's like sacrilege.
So you had an idea of the experience you wanted to give your audience with that role. So how do you ensure that that experience was transferred? What did you do to yourself to create that?
Well, to be honest, because I knew the writer and I had my own sort of relationship with him, it's not a very flattering view of that particular person, I have to stress, and which went along with the book for me. So what actually came out on screen was a lot bleaker than the reading experience of reading the novel. Much bleaker, because the character that I portrayed is obviously bound for destruction. You know, you think he's heading for destruction by the time you see the end of it. And so you have to... I feel that I am naturally strong-willed, assertive, and wouldn't be fucked around by anybody. But this particular character was, I mean, it's like Candide. You see him like, you see the other characters through him, which is very hard to pull off. I found, because you're just almost passive. You know, like you allow things to happen to you rather than you being active. So you have to adhere to that. And how do you put yourself in that space? I felt the writer himself was a very frightened individual, had a lot of fear, you know, and covered that up with a sort of, you know, bluster that has to do with being in this industry, which you know about. And I wanted to get underneath that and show what was really there, which is not pleasant to see, you know, because it's not an attractive person. And to go there, it's very hard to explain how you go there. Because I've never found acting easy, and it doesn't get any easier for some reason. Um, I think there's some work that you do internally where I mean, we're talking about ritual. There is a ritual for me. It could be to do with costume, how how you wear clothes, your body movements, how tentative they are. Like, if, for instance, I feel that I'm quite sort of a physical sort of person. This particular character was quite, pathetic actually and weak. Easily influenced by other people. I have very strong opinions, and I'm not going to be fucked around by anybody. This one was quite happy to be literally fucked, even by, if you see it, by the dog. Everyone shags him.
Yes.
And so you have to somehow, within yourself, go to a place where, in order to make that real, there's a kind of you have to surrender. Does that make any sense? Yeah. You have to surrender, and once you've done that, then you have to have the faith in your decision making. You made that decision. This is what I'm going to do, and just hope to Christ they're the right the right decisions, because not everybody's going to like it.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to shut that.
sure.
I'm going to have my three's fork and spoon conversation coming in the way. Yeah, so the fact that you said surrender was fantastic, because one of the things I intend to practice with my mask wearing is to see what I'm shedding. Which part of me am I shedding? Like, is there a certain shedding that's happening in power? Is it a shedding that's happening in my own personality? And those blur lines, like, I completely understand when you say you're not able to explain the process, but that's exactly what I'm trying to get to the root of, saying, what is this process? Is there, so this whole process of embodying something,
Yes.
a character, it's obviously conflicting with the idea of a very strong self.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
it's also conflicting with the idea of what you want to portray.
Right.
And that balance, what do you do to yourself to kind of get that balance as an actor,
Without sounding too mysterious, it does happen in the secret places of the heart. It does involve there is something mystical that happens, which is the link between what you've shown me and what we do, or actors who are similar to me do. And that, so I guess in the West I would see myself as a character actor, right, rather than what are known as movie stars, I suppose, for want of a better term. You sublimate yourself and empty yourself if you can, and let that character come in. And if you've genuinely done that, it will come. I found that.
Yeah.
Because when you stop shooting that character, like say for 3 months or 4 months that you've been doing it, it's still there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, does it leave
It's still
residue?
fucking there. Yeah, and then you're like carrying that for a while. So like I remember like going from say, what was I doing? The English Patient, which was very disciplined. Yeah. Somebody from the military, somebody who was very honourable, had such integrity, to going into doing Kama Sutra, where the guy was a junkie from the 14th century, and I could still feel kick, because I went straight from Italy to Khajuraho, literally like one day, and then flying out there to do the other film, and so you could feel that kick was sort of still there.
Yeah. So what do you do with that residue? How do you meddle around with it and become this other person? Because that residue is a self that is transformed into being a kip at that point in some form, and then there's another character that you have to play. And does it interfere? What is your ritual to kind of shed the residue that can be left by a character, or do you even shed it, or do you carry it with you,
You
and
carry it with you for
forever,
life.
yeah.
It's like how in life, as people, we compartmentalize, don't we? I mean, we can have intimate relationships, some relationships that are not intimate at all, but we compartmentalize how significant they are to us, you know, how important they are to us. And I think something similar happens with, you know, with roles, perhaps, you know.
And where is the emotion in your acting? Is it your face? Is it your body? Is it your mind?
All of those things.
Yeah, but what is a priority? Like, where is it coming from? Like, for example, you said when you wore a mask. Many of our Indian stories are around when the eyes are covered, how powerless a man feels.
Yeah.
A lot of mythology is written around
Right.
the power of the eye. And then you say, shroud your eye. Shroud your face. And you change as a person. Like you said, when you did Greek performances, you felt very neutralized. But where does that emotion when you're acting as an actor without a mask come from? Like, is your mind telling you that, okay, this role does this and I should move my body this way? Or when you twitch your face, do you feel an actor coming in? Which part of you is kind of doing these things for you?
Which part? My God. Well, obviously, you have to adhere to certain forms. If it's a period piece, if it's set in a certain era, or even in a different century, you try to do, obviously, academic research, which only goes a certain way.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
again, that's not the visceral.
Yeah, so where's that visceral part of you coming from for a character like
Rage.
Yeah? Yeah? Okay. It's interesting.
Yeah, because you use obviously what you use the tools you have, and I think something that's real and that I felt from a very early age was rage, you know, and it's a great way to channel it, you know. I'm 49 now. I started doing this professionally. I was 21 when I left drama school, and this has been my only job. So it's been a great way to siphon off some of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
You know, a lot of the Indian art, performing arts, for example, in India we don't look at arts and performance and all of that as separate pieces. We look at them as actions that we do to an end. It's just an action of sorts. Like a Teyam is an action, you have to do it. Kathakali is an act which you have to put up. There is no compartmentalizing like in Western thought. Right? But, and basically that's why art performances in India are considered to be how expressing what is reality. It's presentation of reality of some sort.
Right.
Now, when you say that you're doing you're channelizing rage, that is your reality at that moment. It's an internal reality of your life, of your being, of your story.
Right.
And now, what if that reality is contrasting with the reality of you having to play somebody who's like an extremely gentle, loving man?
Yes.
How do you do that flip?
Oh my God. Because there are parts of you, it seems, and I'm glad actually to find these things. If I say that in Diana, that's Baton, you know, somebody who's somehow free of neurosis. This man, you know, he doesn't have the Western thing of like. Well, I think a lot of living in this modern era, whether you're female or male, you're going to be neurotic to some degree. It's rare to find a man that's not.
Yeah.
That's not, you know, plagued by neurosis. And this chap was, it seemed, at least at that time, didn't seem to have neurosis, which is incredibly attractive to the person he was having a relationship with. How do you get there? There are parts of us, we're also complex. We're not black and white, are we? There's so many different things that we don't even know about. So there might be something in you, for instance, that's extremely noble and reticent, and you know, because you're quite an exuberant personality, but there are parts in there. I know there must be, which are much more. No, I'm going to step back. I'm going to, I'm going, and that where we have our own natural dignity, yeah, which we may not be able to discover necessarily in the lives that we lead because of the lives that we lead. But it is there. And it's part of being human.
Yeah.
It's like you can't say, oh, you're this or you're that. We like to define, oh, she's like this, he's like this. No.
So that was my next question. Like I said, where is the role of memory, prior knowledge in an enactment?
Yeah.
And do you go back to your own experiences?
Absolutely.
Can there be an enactment without memory?
Can there be an enactment without memory? But see, that's interesting. So I played a character from the 18th century when I was at drama school. A much older person who had, children, and it was somebody who had like been a philanderer when he was young and a drinker and all the rest of it. And then, as an older man, had gone completely to the other side and was very strict with his children and a complete hypocrite. Now, how at 19 or 18, or wherever it was that I played that role, could I have that depth of experience? You just go back to your own experience with your own parents, what you know about your grandparents, their relationships. That's not emotional memory, but it's based on observation.
So is it visual? Is it in your head? Is it metaphorical?
It's in my head and it's visual.
It's
absolutely,
visual?
yes.
Okay.
Because
and you can recall it.
absolutely.
You experience it in your body as well when you think it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you won't be able to put it off. Just. I mean, like you know it, like in our own family, without being offensive or rude, we have family members who, when they were young, were totally wild, and then later on have gone back towards the church or whatever. And that's a reality. That is real. They have actually done that, and they derive comfort and, from their faith, which was always, drummed into them as young people, but then obviously they left the church and came back. So that's real.
Yeah.
So you make that real for you.
Yeah. And again, going back to, does your mind act first or does your face and your body act first? Where do you feel
Good question.
first?
Good question. If you're really in the moment, which is what we all strive for as actors, to be in the moment, because sometimes you'll do something and there won't be any truth in it, and you'll feel it. Oh, that felt completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Again, without being sentimental or pretentious, I think it's from the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you sense, feel, emote, all of that?
It's something that comes from, it should, at least.
So your memory and your heart, how do you make that connection? Because we also spoke of the idea of memory and experience. So I'm just curious to know, how do you pull it all together into
I honestly don't know how that happens. I can't explain how it happens. But if you are in the moment, something that happens that's intangible, where wherever it's coming from, actually even better. For instance, you can do a take where you think everything's gone brilliantly, and you were there, and the other actor was there, and it was a great scene, etc., etc. And then you'll see it on the monitor, or whenever you have to see it at the premiere or whatever, and it's not that good, and it's very odd because you thought, well, everything was working, well, it's dead, fucking scene's dead, and then you'll see scenes where you thought, I just threw that away, and it's more than okay, something's happening there, and you thought, how the fuck can that be? What I'm trying to say is this: your best work, at least my best work, I feel, comes from when you let whatever it is go through you, and you're not doing it. something else is doing it.
What is this something else?
And that goes with music too. If you're playing, sometimes something else will come through. And I don't know what that is. But like with great music or great playing, it's from, I don't know. Like Hendrix, for instance, something was coming through him that was not of the earth. It was something else. This spirit or this whatever it was, this force was coming through an electric guitar and a bunch of amps. Because today we have, we have Marshalls and Stratocasters, but we have all these effects that that we can control feedback with or whatever. Hendrix didn't have that, but he could control it just with like a movement or just touching the guitar like this, and this spirit or whatever it was would just come through.
So in Indian art theory, there's a concept called Sahridaya, means one of similar heart. Meaning that if you have to create a relationship in your audience to experience, you want to create an experience for your audience, and your audience has to take back. There has to be a relationship that has to be built with both the performer and the witnessing person. And that's called Sahridaya, which means one of similar heart. So there is no difference between the heart of the person who's witnessing and the heart of the person who's giving the experience out. So when you act, do you try and build a relationship with your character that you're trying to play? Do you feel one at heart with that character? And what do you do to feel that oneness? Is there a ritual that you have? Is there a Sahridaya that you try to... Sahridaya means one of similar heart. So do you have to become Kip?
Yes.
And so what is your ritual to do that? Is there a ritual that you're doing? Does your body do you go through something that you do? Is there a process?
I mean, when we were at drama school, there was a definite process that was to do with breathing exercises, meditation.
Those are all bodily processes?
Yes.
Okay.
Breathing, and also ki, so you have that power going through. And then what happens is all these disparate elements come together because you're involved, makeup, costume. If it's a military character, costume is really important, to make you feel like the character. And it could be music, art, paintings. Literature.
Are you creating a visual imagery of yourself in your head then? Like when you say that for me a character is there a visual metaphor of sort in your head of
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For Kip, when I was doing the research at the Imperial War Museum in London, there was a portrait of a Sikh officer from the Royal Engineers.
Okay.
Coincidentally in that fucking building. So the sight of that and concentrating on it does a lot of...
So you embody that personality in some form, or you pick things from it?
You pick things from it.
Yeah.
So
again, where is the mind and where is the body in this process?
Like that goes back to the metaphysical poets. Does the mind rule the body or vice versa?
Yeah.
We don't know.
You don't know? Do you, considering you live it every day, do you ever ask yourself, hey, where did that come from? Like, how did I become
Of
this?
course, absolutely. Yeah. But you leave it there. You don't question it. You don't analyze it.
But is it hard to be these different characters, embodying these different people?
Some are easier than others.
Yeah.
It varies from role to role, depending on how remote they are from you or what you feel is you.
What happens when they are you? Like when you do a character which is very close to you, does it kind of churn you? Is there a...
Oh God. Well, like say Kama Sutra,
Yeah.
that character for the way I was living my life at that time was very close.
Yeah.
There was, there wasn't much research that needed to be done for that one.
So did it kind of make you question your own intentions? Does it happen as a performer? Do you?
Oh yeah. As I said earlier, it's like you make these decisions because you have to make a decision. You can't just go, "Oh, I'm not sure." They're very clear decisions that you have to make. You set it down, but then of course you question it. You think, "Oh, as I said, oh God, were they the right ones?" And you won't really know. I mean, yeah, you get good reviews or bad reviews or whatever, but I can now look at, say, the Buddha Suburbia because it's so long ago, and my eldest son is older than I was at that time, and I can see just because when I look at him, he resembles the way that character looked around that age, and I think, yeah, you know, the way the body was and the kind of gaucheness, you know, and the innocence maybe before it gets corrupted was actually a good decision, you know.
I mean, the decisions of like, does your art make you question your own personal decisions as an artist? Does the process make you question your own personal decisions at points? Does it? It does.
Of course, but you're unfortunate. At least I feel that's almost like a suggestion. Why can't you learn from it to maybe help you in your own life? Only after a lot of time has elapsed, perhaps. You know, because it seems that as human beings we learn in increments. It seems we can make progress in so many ways.
Is there a role that has transformed you as an individual? Like I mean to say, you've played a role and it's made you go back and look at yourself, look at your own practices, look at your own life, and has it transformed your own understanding of situations?
Yes, but not to the extent where I've actually become a better person.
No, I don't mean being a better person. I mean to say transform you in some form of realization. Has that?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And does that begin with discomfort, or does it begin with where does that transformation begin from? Like as a performer.
I don't think of it as a transformation. It's an influence.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But there is that influence.
Absolutely.
It is that very blurred spilling over that's happening constantly.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And where is you and where is the character and how are they blurred? I'm repeating the same questions over and over again in different forms. I know there's a very hard thing for a performer to kind of, like you said, many of these things are intangible. But the reason I'm asking this is to see if we can surface newer ideas of where it could
Sure.
be. Yeah.
Yes. So what the question was, where are they?
Where is you as Naveen, and where is the character, and how are they blurred in this process of embodying or acting? Or
They shouldn't be blurred.
no?
They should be distinct.
Yeah,
And
they should be
separate.
distinct.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I tried to go for. I mean, you know, like in that Bride and Prejudice, because the character was so light-hearted and not necessarily.
You can talk, it's okay.
Okay. I came to ask, would you like a cold coffee?
Yes, please.
Yes, because I was going to ask if she wants a beer.
Yeah. I'm having a
Thank
beer.
you.
Thanks, Deep.
Sure. In a glass.
Yeah. Yeah, so you said no blurring, you have to be distinct, but then how do you do that? Like there's memory, there's experience, there is prior belief on what you want a character to be. So where is the distinction? Like how do you do that process? Like for example, if I say Kip or I say Raja Harishchandra, there's already a visual image you're creating in your head about how that person looks. So there is something that's playing out for you even before you enact that role, because that is Naveen bringing his biases of how a personality should be. So there is that influence of some sort.
Of
And then
course.
there is a demand of this character of Kip or whoever having to be that. So how is this distinction happening, and how do you stay true to what you're doing in a,
Right.
because the performance is asking you to have that truth, right? That truth of the moment, of the personality. So where is that coming from?
I wish I knew. I honestly wish I knew. I don't know. And if I did, it would be time to stop. I
Really?
think. Yeah.
Why?
Because there's again, without being pretentious or deliberately evasive, it's the process that involves a little bit of magic, I guess. You know, there's something magical about it.
Yeah, you said mystical earlier too. It's fantastic. Like, yeah. So you're saying that it's the action for action's sake. You're I mean, in very philosophical words, you're enacting and you're there, and it's a moment, and you relish it, and you do it, and then and there it's you push yourself not to go beyond that. You're
Yes.
not asking more than that,
Yes.
because it's giving you the experience you need for that time.
Yes, and boundaries and
Yeah.
you know the map, if you
Yeah.
like.
Tell me more about this map.
The map. It's having an instinct, I hope, or being absolutely sure there are places that you can't go, and actions or something to do with the tone of your voice, the timbre of your voice, that wouldn't work, yeah? That would somehow kind of clang and not be true.
So truth is a huge component of,
Truth.
yeah.
That's what I guess I've always tried to go for.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. However unpleasant that might be. It's not about looking good,
Yeah.
you know. Like when I did Provoke with Ashwarya, it was like, you know, this. If we're going to do this, it can't be about looking good. It's what we're going to show is something quite ugly.
Yeah.
If we're going to be true to it, yeah.
Yeah. So you be ugly to the, I mean, true to the ugliness as well.
Thank you.
And
That's lovely.
thank you. Sure. Yeah, and so like a performative artist is performing to an audience who he can see right in front of him.
Exactly.
He might sense adulation, he might sense all of that, but you are technically acting to a camera, which is your audience maybe at that point, and also asking yourself if you have done, your meter is yourself in that form, right? You're constantly questioning with yourself if you've enacted that role the way it should be. But somewhere you are thinking about the kind of relationship you want to build with the audience.
Absolutely, because you have a relationship with the camera, or you should.
Yeah, so, yeah, but I mean to say that, how do I explain this? What is the relationship between you and the person who must be witnessing you in a theatre? Do you ever think of that as...
Oh God, I see. I haven't
Yeah.
done theatre since 1991.
No, I mean to say even as an actor now, like, are you still considering the person who's going to witness you when they
No.
watch you on screen?
No,
No.
you shouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, you do what you do and hope for the best. You know, once it goes out, it no longer belongs to you, and how people react to you, it's none of my business. Do you know what I mean?
But you don't want to create like a certain believable character when you're doing that? Like you want your audience to take away a brutal husband. You want your character to take away a man of high integrity. Don't you want your audience to take that
Of
away?
course.
Yeah, so that is the kind of relationship you're trying to build, right?
It's an offering. It's an offering. What they do with that offering, and how they perceive it, and how they examine it is their own.
Such a lovely way. Yeah.
It's an offering.
Yeah. Yeah. So how would you define an art experience?
An art experience.
When I mean an art experience, I mean experiencing as like what you do for me is an art experience. I don't mean a painting on a wall kind of thing. I think Theyyam is an art experience. Anything that's making me think, believe, question, re-examine, feel, emote is an experience of art.
Yeah. Oh, I
So,
see.
yeah.
Well, Iggy Pop once said this, I think. He goes, this is probably in 1977 when he was touring with Bowie. And he said, at my shows, you're always going to get an experience. Sometimes I won't be on, but when I'm on, I do a good piece of art.
And what is Naveen's take on that?
Similar,
Yeah?
very similar. Because he was one of the performers I first saw, because I was into punk and all the rest of it. And I saw him when I was 17 at Brixton Academy, and then years later I told him that I was at that gig. And I'd never seen, even on the stage, like actors, I'd never seen a performer be that vulnerable. It was a lesson in, first, how the sheer force of his presence entitled him to the stage. And then, particularly for a man in that macho rock and roll setting, could be that vulnerable. It's a shock. And almost not afraid to look ridiculous or silly or, that's a bit bizarre, And that courage to do that, I think had a huge influence.
What do you do when you feel vulnerable? I'm sure you do too many times. I mean.
Well, when I was younger, because I was used to drink, it was hard to come down from whatever it was that you'd expressed or whatever had come out. So you would drink to.
But the Theyyam does that too. When the Theyyam performance is happening.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
So they're constantly drinking because they're embodying it must be a scary unknown place.
Yes, it is. When you at least when I was young.
Yeah.
I don't think I could cope with that. Otherwise I wouldn't have been doing what I was doing or living that particular way. As I've gotten older, and the fact that I'm still alive, and also to be able to have in a conventional sense have a career, have a life. You are quite judicious about how you deal with it, how you use the experience of coming down, without alcohol, without necessarily being so destroyed by it,
So in your acting space, what are the few times that you felt like you were in the unknown? Like what is the unknown doing to you? I'm not asking for examples of acts that you've done, but I'm talking about what has the unknown done to you? What has it made you feel? Like, is it
I remember, well, that kind of vulnerability would bring up stuff that, you hadn't put it into the performance necessarily, but it was there because you brought these things up, and then you go home with those things. And that was hard, at that time to deal with. What sort of things? Well, in amongst all the detritus, I suppose, there's some very unpleasant, awful things that you haven't maybe faced or even articulated to anyone, perhaps, even to yourself. Yeah. And it was quite disturbing, I suppose. I've seen that. I remember at drama school, an actress who, just doing a breathing exercise, went to this place that was obviously bringing up stuff that was not good. And it was horrible, it was horrible. So yeah, you're dealing with combustible material. And you've got to be careful.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful, man.
Because it's throwing up so many layers of you, and is it like a churn of waves that is just bringing out things? How, if you had to describe this journey in the unknown, what is that one object that you would describe it with? Because you've used such beautiful words with. What is that one? What is that churn? What is a visual metaphor you would associate with that churn? An object, if that's something that you can do.
it's almost like being wounded, you know. And as you get older, hopefully you've learned how to heal those wounds, so that you're able to recall it without being debilitated.
So is being vulnerable the only way to heal is that a you have to be vulnerable to sort of heal? For an actor, for a performer?
For certain kinds of actors or performers, yes. You know, that certainly doesn't apply to everyone. Absolutely not, no. So what I'm saying is
No, I don't mean heal in the sense of a psychological healing, but I'm trying to say is many of the performers I've spoken to, like I have somebody who does disguises for a living, and he wears a disguise and stands on the street. And he's a Serbian guy, and he used the word vulnerable again. I have used it in my proposal where I've said that I'm going to be wearing masks, and what I'm intending to do is to be vulnerable, because I kind of believe that being vulnerable is going to throw parts of me back at me, and I'm having to face things that I might otherwise not even be aware of.
Right.
Now, how you choose to use the word heal might differ from a psychoanalytic space to whatever, you know, but I'm trying to say that be more aware of yourself, be more cautious with yourself. Does that process, being vulnerable is the only way to do that? Is that what you intend to say?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Okay. No, absolutely not.
No. What are the other things an actor can do to kind of, is there some other process or ritual that an actor can go through to understand himself better?
I honestly don't know. I mean, see, because what happens to you isn't necessarily that important in terms of the work. Yeah. If I think of someone like Andy Kaufman, who is identified as a comic, what he was actually doing was not comedy. It was something beyond that. It was like performance art in a way, where he would do things like, I don't know if you've heard, his early gigs would come on stage and put his clothes in a washing machine or a dryer and then sit there, and the audience would start abusing him because he'd be there for half an hour with the thing spinning. Right. Well, he'd come out and start reading from The Great Gatsby, and they'd start off because he'd keep reading it, and they'd be going, shut up, what is this? And whatever. He goes, be quiet, we have a long way to go, or he'd be a deliberately bad comic, and then the audience would abuse him, and then he would break down and start crying. You know. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
He took wherever he went after those performances. Who knows?
Yeah. He was getting people to feel certain things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you never found the need to, you've never had to deal with thinking about what your audience would have taken away from a performance. You've never thought about, it ends with the act?
It ends with the act. Yeah. And then, of course, you from people who've seen your work, I mean, I'm very flattered that, people have, when I was in New York, really, when Gartham came up, was just walking to the restaurant, and people would run up to you and say, this, whatever it was very important to me for whatever reason. And then you think, I suppose it does affect people, and in a good way, if they have that sort of reaction,
Yeah. One last question about the body and the face and the mind. As an actor, the difference that I see in what you do and what a performance artist does is that they have a template of sorts as to what are the certain performances they can do. A Tayyam can have a certain facial mask, and he can wear a certain outfit, and there are certain templates that he can follow. While in your case, your roles are changing, your characters change. It's demanding something out of your body that is much more.
Yes.
Can you tell me something more about what it does to your body? I mean...
Well, first of all, I don't know if it is much more. It's probably...
I'm sorry, my mother's asking for you.
2 minutes. Last question we are on. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. What
What
was
does
I
it
saying?
do to your body?
Body.
Because it demands, according to me, more. I mean, I'm assuming it is more. I might be completely wrong.
No. I think every artist is unique in themselves, and it's not more or less, or but there's you can definitely feel it, because after a day's work or night's work or whatever it is, you're like, it's not the physical actions of what you've been doing, it's what you've been embodying or trying to, I should say. And there's a exhaustion that's very different, because you're wired, you know. You're like, you can't sleep, and
You can't.
yeah, it stays with you. So you're absolutely right. Physically, you do go to a certain place, and that involves, you know, tension at certain times and relaxation at other times.
So you're completely there. Your mind, body, spirit, soul. It's a complete.
Hopefully, yes. You know, if you're not pissed off about this or pissed off about that, or you know, somebody hasn't, you know, the myriad sort of things that can fuck things up, you know, distractions and all the rest of it. If things are all working well, then yes.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And they were great questions.
Thanks.
They were really good.
Thank you.
Made me think.
I said it was an academy interview. I hope I figure something out from this. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I intend to meet other artists as well. So it's going to be quite a, you know, I'm going to be meeting these artists as well. So it's going to be really eye-opening, some of these conversations.
Well, yeah, I want to know what they say. I'm really interested.
Yeah,
in what
I'll
they
send
find.
you some of the interviews.
Like the real thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Done.
So, they've all eaten.
Oh, they've eaten.